Where is there optimism for Michigan State football against Illinois? Well, against all odds, it starts right there in the trenches. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You can start the season with the big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans. It's your team in green and white 5 days a week. Please rate, review, subscribe. And hey, join us in the show where we're going to end with basketball. Yes, there is a Shooty Hoops game on Saturday against Bowling Green. We'll get to know about them a little bit. Michigan State shooting issues. Will they not be issues? We'll get to that in the third segment. But first, of course, we got to talk about this football game, which is no guarantee for a victory, right? Like Michigan State is underdogs. We got some things we're worried about here that we'll talk about in the second segment. But right now, let's start on the sunny side of things, right? Some good old-fashioned optimism. And no, it's not blind optimism. We're not just saying things to say things. We'll back it up with not just what we see with the eyeballs, but also the numbers too, guys. The numbers never lie. And right now, it starts against all odds. I know it's been kind of hit and miss in the trenches for Michigan State this season. It starts right there, though. Because my goodness gracious, what a matchup that we have with Michigan State's defensive front versus the Illinois offensive line. Now, if you missed yesterday's chat with Locked On Illini, yes, our guy Sonny over there, well, no pun intended, but he wasn't too sunny about his offensive line. Let's just go through what he means by that, what we'll mean by that, because it could be a nice bounce back game for Michigan State's defensive front. Now, Luke Altmyer, the quarterback for Illinois, he is one of the top 20 most pressured quarterbacks in college. All right, he's got guys in his face 37.4% of his dropbacks. All right, Illinois, they're giving up the most sacks in the Big Ten with a smooth 28 sacks. Okay, so that's the pass protection right there. The run game does not get much rosier for the Fighting Illini. They are carrying the ball at 4.08 yards per carry. That is 87th best in the nation. Guys, that is the worst run unit, the worst run attack that Michigan State will have faced amongst Power 4 teams since the Maryland game. All right? Now, don't laugh too hard. Don't celebrate just yet. Michigan State's even worse than that on offense. They're 117th best in the country at carrying the football, but let's just stick with the optimism here. Let's stick with the agenda that we're creating right now. Because look, Michigan State's defense, their run defense specifically, pretty solid. All right, decent at just giving up 3.79 yards per carry. That's 42nd best in the nation. That's a tick above average. So there could be some glory days coming back to Michigan State's run defense right now. It's not that great for pass protection. It's not that great with the run offense for Illinois. This is a far cry from what we expect out of a Brett Bielema coach team traditionally. You think, big hosses on the offensive line. You think pass protection. You think just road grading the football on the ground. Not so much this year with the Fighting Illini, right? And it has affected Luke Altmyer. This was one of the big talking points for Sonny on yesterday's show, is that Luke Altmyer has just straight up lost confidence in his offensive line. There are numbers to back that up. All right, he's passed for over 60% completion just once in the last 4 games, and it wasn't even higher than 60% by much. It was 60.6% in a loss against Minnesota. That's after a really white-hot start to the season by Luke Altmyer. In the first 5 games, he was over 70% completion percentage in those first 5 games. Well, in that 5th game of the season, against Penn State, where he got sacked 7 times, well, that's where it started to snowball for him. All right. As a matter of fact, ever since stepping on the field in Happy Valley against Penn State, he's been sacked 20 times in the last 5 games. He doesn't trust his offensive line. Okay, well, you could very clearly see why. My man is fighting for his life back there. Yes, Michigan State has a pass rush issue, to put it kindly. We're going to get to more of those spooky numbers in the second segment. If you've missed us talking about the last few days, it's no guarantee Michigan State can thrash Illinois' offensive line. What we're trying to say is that, well, as far as matchups go, this is the most gettable one in the trenches that Michigan State has seen in a while, if not the entire season. As we move to the other side of the ball, the other side of the trenches, well, let's talk about Michigan State's run game. Yes, we're still talking about reasons for optimism. And yes, I did watch that Indiana game. It was a catastrophe. It was an undeniable train wreck on the ground. After you weed out all the sack numbers, Michigan State still ran for just 37 yards on 24 carries. Oh, that's bad. Why is it optimistic then? What is this green and white jamoke talking about right now, Zen? Because really, the run game has been nothing to write home about, I would say, in 7 of Michigan State's 9 games, guys, right? I mean, what if I told you, well, that in those 7 games, heck, even those 9 games, every game, even the one that Michigan State did really well in against Iowa and Michigan, what if I told you that Michigan State is, not just struggling themselves? We have our own issues on the offensive line, moving the ball, of course. But what if I also told you, to compound that problem, our guys have just been playing against really good run defenses, right? I mean, really good run. Indiana, second best in the country at run defense. Ohio State, they're top 10. Michigan, they're a top 20 unit. Even Maryland, they have a top 30 run defense. It has been tough sledding, but here comes, at the right time, the Fighting Illini. 90th best team in the nation at stopping the run. That's really not good whatsoever. They are letting the opposition run at 4.53 yards per carry. All right, just last game for Illinois, they let Minnesota, who ranks outside the top 100 in rush offense, they let them get 4.6 yards per carry. Really helped the Gophers dominate time of possession. The Gophers were able to run the ball like they really haven't been all season long against Illinois. This is another reason for optimism. Again, guys, I know it's not great shakes here in East Lansing, but we just went against, sounds weird to say, sounds weird to listen to, a really good Indiana run defense. And what happened the 2 games before that? It really moved the ball well on the ground against Michigan, and then by golly gee willikers against Iowa, that's the best they've moved on the ground against a Power 4 team since Kenneth Walker was here at Michigan State. They've seen that it's here. It can be done. Can they get right after the bye week? Well, they did good after the last bye week, but before we get to that, hey, another reason for optimism, not on offense, not on defense. That's right, it's Big Ten football, baby. We're talking punting the ball. Now, I know you may be laughing. You might think that this is maybe an overreach of reasons for optimism. It's just one small portion of the game, or is it? Because Hugh Robertson, the Fighting Illini punter, dead last in the Big Ten at 41.8 yards per punt. All right, he's also tied for last in the Big Ten at 50-plus yard punts. Really does not boot the ball that well. That's plain to see. I just said that he's dead last in average and also 50-plus yard punts. Now, in 29 punts, he just has 3 of them that have gone over 50 yards. Do you know who else has 29 total punts on the season? That's our guy, Ryan Eckley. He's got a little more than just 3. He's got 17 of those punts. The punting disparity could very well be the storyline in this game. Vegas is expecting a close game. All right, it's a 2.5-point spread. That is razor-thin margins, the kind of margins that can be decided with field position. Just like it was 2 years ago. Same place, same opponent, Memorial Stadium against Illinois. Hey, you know what? Tell me that punting and field position didn't matter in the second half of that one as Bryce Behringer put on a masterclass. Could it be deja vu of this one? Just because, well, yes, Michigan State has a great punter, but also equally as important, Illinois has been struggling at punting the ball. Field position could be thy name of thy game coming up. And guys, you want just 2 small reasons for optimism? Well, coming off another bye week, and so is Illinois. Okay, and Illinois, under Brett Bielema, really good after the bye week in his tenure. They're 3-1 after bye weeks. But join me here. Their last bye week, after they came off it, sure, they won. They won a great overtime game. Against Purdue, though, is that... Yes, it's a win in the win column. That's as moral loss of a game as you can get off a bye week, taking that Purdue team to overtime. Not great, okay? But on the contrary, here at Michigan State, what do we do after our bye week, after getting just smacked around against some really good teams? Well, they had their best game that we've seen them play in 3 years here in East Lansing against Iowa, if you forgot. And just to throw this little sprinkle on top, guys, how about those uniforms? How about those uniforms? The all whites, the Gruff Sparty helmet. Yes. Hey, how about that for a little bit of mojo? Those are the reasons for optimism. Of course, guys, not a guaranteed win. We're going to talk about our concerns, keys of the game. We're going to get to some picks here. But first, you need to talk your ears off about Omaha Steaks. Woohoo! The holiday season must be coming around because Omaha Steaks is back in our lives. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. This year, skip the holiday hustle and bustle and save 50% off gourmet gifts site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, get a $30 reward card when you shop early and score an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. That's right, just college. It's that easy. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages starting at $89.99. Wow, that's a great price. Let's go. From legendary steaks to mouthwatering desserts and more, save 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE and a $30 reward card when you shop early. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. Minimum purchase may apply. Also, game day, rocking my new home field crew neck sweatshirt because, well, it just looks great. I say I look pretty nice in this. It's got the old Sparty statue right there, but it feels incredible to put a crew neck, a hoodie, a t-shirt on from homefieldapparel.com. Now, guys, let's say that, you know what, you like more teams than just Michigan State, or you think that other schools have some really cool vintage logos. Go on over there, homefieldapparel.com, especially for this holiday season. If you have some, dare I say, non-Spartans in your lives. Also, smash in promo code Spartan24 for 15% off your first purchase over there at homefieldapparel.com. It will be the best looking apparel you can wear on game day and non-game days, of course, but also equally as important, guys, it is the most comfortable articles of clothing you or the other fan in your life will enjoy. Again, guys, mosey on over to homefieldapparel.com. Find great vintage apparel that is comfortable over at homefieldapparel.com and save with Spartan24. Again, Spartan24 is the promo code for 15% off your first purchase at homefieldapparel.com. All right, to keep ourselves honest, obviously we just went through a list of optimism, right? I mean, you know, there's some battles in the trenches. Michigan State can win. Now, before we go any further, Michigan State is underdogs for a reason. I don't want you guys, you know, running over to FanDuel and shoveling all of your money and your life savings on the Spartans because, well, there are concerns for Michigan State that we should be cognizant of as we walk closer to kickoff here. Like, well, how about those injuries that Michigan State sustained 2 weeks ago against Indiana? Charles Brantley, of course, leaving the game in crutches and a walking boot. Not good for your top cornerback on the team. Or, well, how about his running mate in the backfield over there, Malik Spencer? He left the game in the first half, did not come back in the second half. We don't know if they're going to play. All right, they've been very mum on their health ever since that game. Jonathan Smith did say that no one sustained a season-ending injury, but still, you see a guy walk off with crutches and a walking boot. I'm no doctor, but I am smart enough to know that that's probably not great for Chuck Brantley at least. So you might be getting some very, very raw young players in there, like cornerback Jalen Thompson, who played a lot in Indiana's second half, and then Justin Denson too, who played like 20-some snaps in replacement of Malik Spencer. They could be getting the call there as well. And yes, well, we do believe in those guys being really strong players here in East Lansing. They had some solid plays against Indiana. That's asking a lot for out of some true freshmen right there. Now, Aiden Childs, yes, he did leave that game injury. He has been practicing this week, but still, that's going to be a lingering injury, right, guys? What kind of Aiden Childs are you going to get this Saturday? That's something to be aware of. And while we talked about Illinois' offensive line, okay, how Michigan State has a very gettable matchup right there. Well, how about Michigan State's offensive line, right, guys? Of course, we know the stories with the injuries there. That's been the calling card of the entire season, is just how are they going to field an offensive line for the upcoming game, right? And, well, unfortunately, Illinois has a decent pass rush. I'm not saying world-beating. I'm not saying one of the best in the Big Ten, but it doesn't have to be that good to cause damage against Michigan State's offensive line, right? Okay, so Pro Football Focus, they have the Illini pass rush rated as the 75th best pass rush in football, which is, like, numbers-wise, that's objectively average. But let's take a peek under the hood, because as of late, there have been some numbers that could be a concern for this game. And for all you fans out there that like to do transitive property, of course, that's an exact science that is flawless. It could lead you down only factual avenue right here. Well, okay. A few weeks ago against Michigan, Illinois pressured Michigan 23 times. Against that very same Michigan team, a week later, Michigan State got 1 pressure. That's not an error. That's true. And it actually looked like 1 pressure too, as we watched that game in real time. But yes, 23 pressures by Illinois, 1 for Michigan State against the same Michigan offensive line. Now, look, Illinois is sitting on 22 sacks this year. That is top 40 in the nation. They have 77 pressures in their last 5 games. And guys, just to look inward here for Michigan State, we talked about how Luke Altmyer, top 20 pressured quarterback in the country. Well, our guy Aiden Childs, 15th. Top 15 most pressured quarterback in the country, being pressured on 37.9% of his dropbacks. So, yes, again, before you just shovel all your money and all your hopes and dreams this weekend on Michigan State, be very aware of that. Okay, that is going to be a storyline in this game, just like, well, Michigan State's pass rush. Guys, if you've missed our episodes about just how atrocious the Michigan State pass rush has been as of late, let's go through a few numbers right now. We all know the stat by now that Michigan State does not have a sack since the 3rd quarter of the Boston College game. That is so long ago that quarterback they sacked against Boston College, yes, Thomas Castellanos, he's lived a lifetime in college. He's no longer even on Boston College's team. He's in the transfer portal. So much turmoil has happened in that young man's life and over there at Boston College that he's lived like a complete life cycle year of college football. That's how long it's been since Michigan State has gotten a sack. As a matter of fact, ever since that day in Chestnut Hill, Michigan State has only had 12 pressures on the quarterback. They just have 6 pressures in the last 3 games combined. Guys, I cannot stress how abysmal, downright horrible, not to call out these kids. They're very hardworking kids. You know, everyone's a student athlete here working their best, but try harder. They've been horrible, just absolutely horrible. We also talked too with our guy, Chase Glasser, over there at Spartans Illustrated. Hey, why isn't Joe Rossi blitzing more? I love Joe Rossi. I think he's a great defensive coordinator, but they've had 0 pass rush. And against Power 4 teams this year, they have not blitzed a double-digit amount of times yet. Please just do something to help, especially if you got 2 true freshmen down there in the secondary. They can't be covering guys for 7, 8, 39 seconds. Before I get a little too angry here, yes, the pass rush, not only is it a key to the game, but it's going to be a storyline here. It is a gettable matchup. It is probably the most gettable matchup Michigan State has had, pass rush versus offensive line, since that Maryland game. But my God, there's no guarantee that's just going to work like that. Can you just be not terrible? That's what we're looking for. Just, get close enough to at least smell Luke Altmyer's breath. You guys haven't done that since, again, week 4. It's so bad. Anyway, guys, the keys to the game, I think, is clear by now. Well, you got to get the run game going if you're Michigan State. It is, again, I hate to keep using this word, a gettable matchup. Illinois is letting up a lot of yards on the ground, but it just takes the pressure off Aiden Childs, right? Injured or not injured. Yeah, even if he's not injured, the man is still turnover prone. Take as much pressure off him as you possibly can, just like you did in the Iowa game. We all had a great time. Our running backs did. Our offensive line did. Aiden did. The fans did. Can we just harken back to those days? And you need to get pressure on the quarterback. We've seen what 0 pressure has done, right? Well, hey, guys, you know what? Just for another number, here's how important it is to get pressure on Luke Altmyer, a guy that has less and less trust in his offensive line. When he's pressured, his completion percentage goes down to 47.1%. Okay, it is important. And guys, do it early. Give this man no reason to regain confidence in his offensive line. He is a beaten, battered, shelter dog of a quarterback, okay? Do not give him any reason to perk up and realize that things can get better. Just get after him very early. And also special teams, yes, our punter's great. Their punter's not great. All right, we got a really good field goal kicker. Theirs is pretty good too, but just tighten up. Tighten it up. We are starting to now we're not all the way there. We're not all the way back to the days of Ross Ells, but we are getting a little close, right? All right, we don't want to see any botched snaps. Yeah, I know it's a new lawn snapper. I know that the other guy's out for the rest of the season. I also don't need botched onside kicks like you did a few weeks ago. Should you go that route? Michigan State, they had a great numbers advantage against Michigan. I didn't hate that call. How on earth, A, are you offsides on that? And B, did you not even get the ball to begin with? And don't have any fair catch confusion. I swear we are getting one or two yakety sax moments here on special teams lately. Tighten that up. That's going to be what could decide this game on Saturday. Guys, we're going to hit you with 5 best bets at the end of this show. I'm going to give you my best bet for this game, but we also got to talk a little bit about basketball. But first, guys, need to talk your ears off about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel. Like I said, guys, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to live bet on the NFL all in one place. So if you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Or, hey, you know what? If you really liked what we had to say about Michigan State in the first segment, you didn't really care about what we had to say in the second segment, go ahead. Michigan State right now, 2.5-point underdogs against Illinois. Get in on the action over there at FanDuel. And, well, when the touchdown props come out, Jack Velling can't go the entire season without scoring a touchdown, right? I will be placing a penny or two on him to score a touchdown over at FanDuel. Again, guys, get started over there at FanDuel.com to join today. You will get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's over at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NFL. All right, should Michigan State football get the win in Champaign, go ahead, have a celebratory drink, or just hang out with other Spartans at Breslin Center, 6 p.m., because, yes, your men's basketball team, they are back on the hardwood against Bowling Green. That's right. Now we're going to cut to the chase here. The computers over at Bart Torvik, they are suspecting a Michigan State 85-61 win over the 1-2 Bowling Green basketball squad here. Now, so far, Bowling Green, they lost by 9 to Southern Miss to start the season. They lost by 6 to Davidson, and then they absolutely beat the tar out of Taylor by 60. Now, Taylor is an NAIA team. They actually made famously online by their silent night that they do every year. Very cool. Go ahead and look up that video if you have the chance, but their one win is against an NAIA school. So that's maybe why you are predicted to win by, 24 points, I think that math is. Yeah, so what do we got good for MSU here? Look, we're not going to blow this out and make this a whole to-do. This isn't the Champions Classic all over again. But really quick, Bowling Green, they're a small team. All right, they just play one guy that's over 6'7", and he doesn't even play that often. So this could be another big game for Jackson Kohler down low. This could be a great game for Xavier Booker to, hey, maybe, refine what he can do in the paint and not just float around the three-point perimeter and shoot 28% from three. If you're ever going to work on your interior game, this is a great opportunity to start working on that against a lesser opponent. Now, what is not good for Michigan State here, what can make this game somewhat spicy? Bowling Green is shooting the three-point ball at 40%. Like, they are ripping it. Like, even in their first game against Southern Miss, I think they scored more than 80 points. They can put up points, guys. Now, their defense is a little suspect, but we'll see. Now, names to know. We'll go through 3 right here before talking about what we want to see out of Michigan State. But Marcus Johnson, okay, senior transfer out of Division II Wheeling, 6'7", 265 pounds. My man is built like an edge rusher, right? But he also rips the net shooting. Okay, great shooter, like 90% from the free throw stripe, 44% shooter on his career from three-point land. Yes, it's going to look ridiculous. He's bigger than you would expect out of a shooter, but my man over there can make it rain. So keep an eye out on 6'7", 265-pound Marcus Johnson. Now, of course, not the only transfer on this team. 6'2" point guard Javante Campbell, junior college transfer from Northern Oklahoma. Not much of a shooter, but can certainly drive the basketball. He is aggressive downhill, so this is going to be another good matchup. Older, experienced guy against, the more inexperienced guys like Jace Richardson, who's been, of course, really solid for Michigan State so far this year. Jeremy Fears. So no shortage of smaller guards, though. On Bowling Green, Trey Thomas, Derek Butler, 2 other really solid guards that are 6 feet and 6'2", respectively. So just keep an eye on there. And guys, I would be remiss if I did not mention Michigan State basketball recruiting legend, Braylon Green, who I swear to God was visiting Michigan State unofficially in some capacity since he was in 7th grade. He's on Bowling Green. He signed with Arizona State last year, transferred to Bowling Green. Now, not an extraordinary start to the season. I think he's averaging like 5-point-something points, but man, When I was going down the roster and taking notes for this game, I saw Braylon Green. I was like, oh my God. Did I read no less than 3,000 message board rumors about him and his recruitment throughout his high school and I swear middle school career? So there we go. Now, what do we want to see from this team? From Michigan State, that is. I got to go right to three-point shooting, which has been – there's been a few storylines of Michigan State basketball so far this season. The emergence of Jackson Kohler, really good development from him. The surprise of Jace Richardson. Just the mentality of this team. There are some good storylines. This is one of the not-so-good one because, well, Michigan State, they've started their season 12 of 60 from three-point land. Percentage-wise, that puts them at 349th best in the country. That is poo-poo, for lack of a better term. How about that for some nuanced conversation? Now, there's been some chatter about, hey, well, last year, Michigan State, they started shooting the three-point ball really bad, too. It all turned out okay for them. You know what? Yeah, by season's end, it did turn out okay. They were top 50 in the nation by the end of the season, but they started their season 8 of 50 from beyond three-point land. Okay, now within that 8 of 50, in those first 3 games, the same sample size we had for this year, Tyson Walker started 4 of 12. Not great. Malik Hall, he started 2 of 9. Not great. Jaden Akins, 1 of 10. Not great. AJ Hogard, 0 of 7. So the differences between this year and last year, just humor me here, is that you were waiting on Tyson Walker. Right? Like you knew that as a plus 40% career three-point shooter, that he was going to figure it out. And he did eventually. It never got to 40%, but he certainly was better than he was when the season started, right? Malik Hall, you also saw that he could shoot the three-pointer too, right? Like he wasn't going to go the entire year shooting, 2 of 9. That was a threat later on in his season. All right, now Akins is Akins. 1 of 10 stretches are just what you're going to get from him. But you also had a point guard last year in AJ Hogard that got up to 34% shooting. And you also got a surprise out of Trey Holloman. I don't think anyone saw that coming. So this year, here's where we're at. You're replacing Tyson Walker with that very volatile Jaden Akins. Can he shoot good some nights? Yes, he can. Can he disappear some nights? Absolutely, like he already has against Kansas. Now, you are replacing Hogard with Jeremy Fears. Now, look, I think Jeremy Fears is a better point guard than AJ Hogard. Both what you can quantify with stats and what you can't quantify with stats. I think it's just healthier for the whole program right now. But one thing that AJ is potentially, a lot of season left, but right now what I think is what will happen is AJ, well, he wasn't Steph Curry by any means. He still shot at 34%. I think he's going to be a better three-point threat than Jeremy Fears will be this season. Now, Frankie Fiddler, you're kind of waiting on him to be a decent three-point threat the same way you were with Malik Hall, although at a smaller sample size. And then, well, Trey Holloman, yes, he is still here. He had a 42% shooting year from 3 last year. He's still there. Like, that's awesome that you have him. But could it get better than last year? I guess with Jackson Kohler, yes, possibly. That three-point threat that he has is real. Will someone else be a surprise? Will Kurt Tang get enough run to be a legitimate threat? It doesn't seem so early on this year. Like Eric Norman, I think he's even behind where Kurt Tang is. Can Jace Richardson be a legitimate three-point threat? Yes, he's shooting it well. That's an incredibly small sample size so far. So, look, I was very grumpy after that Kansas game because I thought, and I still think that shooting is going to be a big issue for this team moving forward. But you know what? If you want to be optimistic, if you think that Jackson Kohler can really be a three-point threat, really kind of replace what Malik Hall did last year, maybe do even better. If you think that, Trey Holloman can pick up from 42% last year, or even just 39% would be great. And if someone else can be a surprise on this year's team, like a Kurt Tang, Xavier Booker isn't going to shoot this horrendously the entire season. You know what? I hope you're right. I hope that the three-point shooting can pick up enough and replace what they lost from last year with Tyson Walker, with Malik Hall, and AJ Hogard, enough to make it work this season. Now, what else do we want to see here in this game? Maybe just Tom Izzo getting a little closer to figuring out what lineups to play. And I'm not saying that as like a what is Tom Izzo doing thing. No, the depth of this team is certainly one of the brighter points of the season. So much so, there's so much depth that A_Zinger over on Twitter. He's also Andy HRCMB on YouTube, legend in the MSU community. He charts a lot of these basketball games, a lot of the unique lineups, and on that game, on that Tuesday night against Kansas, 31 unique lineups. That is a ton of unique lineups. And also, well, A_Zinger, our guy Andy also remarked that, hey, well, you were plus 10 with 0 or 1 starters on the court. You were minus 18 with 2 to 5 starters on the court. I wouldn't mind, and I know it's 4 games in the season. I know this is going to sound ridiculous. I wouldn't mind mixing it up in the starting lineup right now. All right? And I know, again, is that reactionary? Am I just this upset about the Kansas game? Not necessarily. Because 3 games into the season, you've had 2 games already where you are down 7 points before the under 16 timeout even rolls around. I know that Niagara, that was not an issue. They beat the brakes off them eventually. Against Kansas, they eventually tied, if not led at some parts of that game. You can erase things. There's 36 minutes of the game left after that first 4 minutes. But I'd really like to maybe not be fighting from behind the 8 ball early on in a game. That was a big problem with last year's team too. So can you, I don't know, trot out a starting lineup that is more of a threat offensively, like, Jeremy Fears, Jaden Akins, Frankie Fiddler. Fine, keep them. But maybe Booker comes off the bench as he's struggled to start the season and plug in Jackson Kohler at the 4. Keep Zapal at the 5. I don't care. Or maybe even go small too. Jeremy Fears, Jace Richardson, if you will. Akins back at the 3. Frankie Fiddler at the 4. Kohler at the 5. I truly don't know. I don't even think Tom Izzo knows, because there's a reason that 31 different lineups were made. I completely get why Izzo is in the pickle that he is. It's a good pickle to be in, because this is a deep team this year. Thank goodness. It needs to be deep, but find one that gets you started a little hotter than you have been to start your first 3 games. We'll see. I don't think we'll get that wish. I don't think we'll get a new starting lineup, but stay tuned Saturday night after hopefully Michigan State beats Illinois. All right, guys, really quick before we let you go and enjoy this upcoming weekend, let's get you 5 best bets. Now, we got off the schneid. We went 3-2 last week. That puts us at 32-23 overall. This week, we will start with the Michigan State-Illinois game. And yes, I'm too much of a coward to pick a side in that one, but we will be shooting the under. All right, with both the deficiencies of both teams' offensive lines, I think that's going to drive the point total a little lower. Let's not kid ourselves either. Michigan State could turn the ball over 1, 2, 18 times this game. That's not going to help the over at all. So we're going to go under 47.5 in MSU, Illinois. Keep joining me in the land down under, because we will go under 47.5 in Georgia versus Tennessee. We're also going to go under 50.5 in Rutgers versus Maryland. I have no idea how that total got that high, but you know what? Maybe those are famous last words for that one. Under 50.5 for Rutgers against Maryland. We're going to go to the land of Pat Narduzzi. Pitt plus 10.5 at home over Clemson. And then to end things, 2 offenses that are white hot, over 55.5 in Kansas against BYU. Yes, BYU. It was a grinded out game against Utah. It always is against the Utes. I don't think their offense will have any problem picking right back up where they left off before that game, right there at home in Provo. So just to recap really quick, under 47.5 MSU, Illinois, under 47.5 in Georgia, Tennessee, under 50.5 in Rutgers, Maryland, Pitt plus 10.5 over Clemson, and then over 55.5 in Kansas, BYU. Folks, enjoy your weekend. We will be back Saturday night, of course, not just recapping the football game, but also the basketball game too. So we'll wait until both games are done before we see you next. But hey, see us right here. Locked on Spartans, your team in green and white. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Love every single one of you. Mix of water in this weekend. Let's go. Go green.